Hello and welcome everybody to another puzzle challenge video. This is Ryan Murphy for ChessUniversity.com, and the position before us is yesterday's puzzle, and I'm about to give the solution. It's black to play and win, so if you haven't solved it already, you can take a moment now to pause and try to figure it out. Alright, so this was the end of the game Yi against Escalante Ramirez, as I said in the previous video, and the best move here for black by far is the move knight to e3, delivering a fork against the queen and the rook. Not only this, it also attacks the c2 pawn once again, so depending on where the queen moves, there's actually some merit sometimes in even taking on c2 to open up the c-file for the attack against the king, but the solution is simply to give this fork, and then say if the queen goes to f2, grabbing this is more than sufficient to win. Because white's king is exposed, and they're now material, so that should be a win for black. And with that out of the way, we can now move on to our new puzzle. So let's jump on over. This one's going to be white to play and win. And there is one move that's drastically better than all others in this position, so hopefully that's the one you'll find. It's what we're looking for in terms of the solution. Though, as usual in these puzzles, one side has a pretty big superiority in position even without the tactic. Here it's the case where it's probably the only winning move. So anyway, white to play and win. And I'll reset to the beginning and show how we got to this position. It's about to be white's 16th move. This is the game He against Chen from chess.com, played back in March. So this game began as knight f3, knight f6, g3, g6, both sides fianchetto and castle, so neither side's declaring their intentions in the middle of the board yet, until this move when white plays the move d4. Now black plays d6. Usually this indicates that black's going to play for King's Indian style setup with eventual e5, and white goes b3, fianchettoing the dark bishop. Many ways are possible for white to develop here. c4, trying to transpose into a pure King's Indian with like knight c3 and e4 stuff, but b3 is totally fine. Black plays knight on f to d7, which is a little bit strange. I would expect a move more like e5 here. It seems like the most principled thing. Even c5 is playable. Both of these pawn moves that challenge the center make sense. And e5 looks like a blunder at first, because it looks like it can just be taken, and then taken again. But usually in these positions, there's a trick where the knight will move from f6, and it opens up a discovery on the knight on e5. And normally, this works out because there's a pawn on e4 and black takes it, and then they take the knight on the next move. But here, the reason it's working out is because the long diagonal has been weakened by the move b3, and so the move knight g4 is working tactically. So, for example, if knight takes here, you take this in the corner, and white will have, let's say, check. Why not? King g7 or king h8. King h8 actually runs into knight f7, so that's no good. So we have to go king g7. I should point out what I mean by that. If here there's a nasty move, knight takes f7, and the rook is tied down to defending the queen, so it can't take. And if it can't take, the next move, knight takes, win the queen. So actually, yeah, here king g7 is forced. So it's actually not that clear, this position, and then let's say the bishop develops somewhere. So yeah, white could actually get away with taking the pawn, but they wouldn't actually win a pawn straight up. They would have to sacrifice the rook in the corner to do this. So it's pretty unclear. Anyway, e5 is an interesting move. Anyway, knight fd7, trying to prepare e5, I suppose. Bishop to b2, and now e5 is played. White goes e4. And white just has a little bit more space in the center. Knight c6, attacking d4, rook to e1, rook to e8, queen d2. Not really sure where this knight's going to be developing, but white delays that decision for a bit. So plays queen d2, knight to f8. One idea here is that black wants to take on d4 at some point and then try to get this knight possibly in here. Knight f8 also just gets out of the way of the bishop too, so it allows moves like bishop g4 later. So a4 and bishop g4 immediately. I think somewhere around here, because black's going to have less space, and because they put the rook on e8, usually the reason you do this is so that when you take, you're exerting pressure on the e4 pawn. But if this file never opens up, then the rook on e8 doesn't make a lot of sense. And so here it actually makes some sense to just take. Because, for example, if takes with knight, you can develop your queen, you can develop, you can try to develop this bishop, although it's still not clear where this guy's supposed to go. But you could play a move like queen f6 here, trying to take advantage of the undefended diagonal and the bishop on b2 being loose. And if they don't take with the knight and they try to just play a developing move like knight a3 or something, well then, yeah, maybe you can consider a move like you know, bishop g4 coming in, or even knight e6 to try to hold on to the pawn. Okay, so anyway, a4, bishop g4 played, and now d5, which seems pretty smart because the rook is now closed on e8. Doesn't make a lot of sense there, and the knight's got to move. Yeah, here bishop takes f3 was played, takes, and then knight d4, sinking the knight into what looks like a really good square, but tragically, the knight ends up being kind of doomed. So bishop d1 played, very good move, very good move. And this kind of shows to me that white expected what was coming in a couple of moves in terms of the tactic, because bishop d1 is a very unnatural square for the bishop to go to, but one thing you'll notice is that it's 2 squares away from the knight, which means it dominates the knight along these diagonals. So it takes away all the squares in front of the knight. That's a very common pattern to know. So here black plays the move queen to f6, king to g2 is played. That's important. You don't want to just allow knight f3 check, which would force white to give up their light square bishop to not lose the queen. So that's why king g2, a little bit of prophylaxis, and then after c6, once again it's white to play and win. So hopefully everyone can solve this one. Check the link in the description to see the official post, where if you make your comment with your solution, before the official solution goes up, you can get rewards points on the website. So thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you all tomorrow.